Hi, everybody. Long time no see. Um, I've been a little burnt out on doing whatever this is. Editing videos is extremely taxing for me, for my attention span and everything. It's just, and listening to my own voice, it's very difficult for me. But what I'm really excited about is to share. I finished and um, I have a really fun one, I think, this time. I talked with Scott, who has the Twitter handle Roll or Nothing. We talk a lot about, like, we talk a lot about sports. We talk a lot about different, American culture versus living in the UK. Um, we talk about Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, we hit a lot, and it was really fun. I had a blast talking with him. Um, I know that you will too. Um, I hope we're at this stage where we recognize that I'm not going to be on a consistent schedule. I don't know what schedule I'm going to be on. I'm just doing this. Who knows why? So I hope you enjoy it. I know I did. This was so much fun, and um, yeah, enjoy. It's an anxious DM, talking with friends. Don't run, walk, it's a tea talk. And how? So you say from the Northeast. What area is that?
Newcastle.
Okay.
So it's about 45 minutes drive, an hour maybe,
Mm,
tops, south of the Scottish border.
okay. Okay. Are you a Newcastle United fan then?
I'm not actually. I am a Liverpool fan.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Hence
Oh,
that
there it
is
is.
the
Yeah.
Anfield sign there, just in the background. Yeah.
How well does that go over amongst all your friends?
Uh, not great. Everybody else is a Newcastle fan. The nickname is the Magpie, so
Yeah,
everybody gets
Magpies.
called the Mags. So I have a lot of Mag friends,
Mm,
but I always caveat I am a Liverpool supporter, but I am third generation. So my dad was a Liverpool supporter, and his mum was a
yeah.
Liverpool supporter as well. So at least I've got that.
You weren't just on the Jurgen Klopp train and
No, definitely not. No, I started and I've been lucky with soccer for you
mm,
guys. Been
thank you.
watching it since
Not
about
nobody would know what you
2002.
meant if you said football. Just no one would
Yeah,
get it.
I am a football fan as well, as
Yeah.
in American football.
Uh,
But unfortunately, I say unfortunately, I love them, but Raiders.
yeah. I mean, they had a good year this year. Like,
Yeah. I mean, playoff game, I can't really complain. Winning
no.
season, I think it's only the second playoff game I've seen them play since I've been watching it.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never like so I played American football like when I was in like fifth grade, and I was so excited because we played like every kid plays backyard like American football, and just that's what we did. And I remember
Yeah.
being so excited to like play receiver or running back or something like that. Um, and then I went and joined in like fifth grade, and I was a tiny little kid, and I remember I showed up to tryouts, and they're like, okay, if you want to be a receiver, go here. If you want to be a running back, go here. If you want to be a quarterback, and all that. And I went right to the receivers, and I didn't catch like one ball the whole time during the tryout. And I was like, because you have to wear pads, like
Yeah.
when you're playing in the backyard, you don't wear anything. And so I couldn't catch the ball because I couldn't like lift my hands
That
up.
was, yeah, it must restrict your movement. Yeah.
It really does, and I didn't realize how much it does. And so I ended up playing like third string safety on like a little league football team. And after that I was like, yeah, I'm done with this sport. I'm not playing this ever again.
I've even got my I say play. I don't play in my back garden a lot, but I do have
Oh yeah.
my football.
Oh
So
yeah.
I go and throw it about in the summer when it's a little bit warmer outside.
Mm. How often, like what percentage of people do you see that go like throw a pigskin around?
in the UK, not very often,
Not often.
not often at all. Yeah. If there's a ball that shape, it's usually a rugby ball in this country.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not into rugby. It's not my. I've tried on 3 or 4 different occasions to try. There's like 2 different types of rugby, and one is slightly, for me, it's slightly more related to football because
Yeah.
you have a certain. It's kind of like you almost have downs in. It's called rugby league, and you have to keep moving. You get like a certain amount of chances to get the ball forward a little bit, but you've got to. And then after that, if you have like 4 almost like plays or something, you've got to then kick the ball. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like a little bit related. But I can't get into it. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. I don't see the tactics, whereas I can to a degree with football.
Yeah. I want to get into rugby too. Like I really want to. And yeah, every time I try, it's always just I can't do it. Like I know it's a very skilled sport and I know it's hard and I know there's a lot to it and I can't get into it either. I don't know why.
See, we played that in we call it PE. I'm guessing
Yeah.
you guys call it gym class.
Yeah, we call it PE too. I've heard,
Yeah. So we played rugby, but
Oh.
I'm not a big guy, and I was even littler when I was in school. Yeah, just get in the middle of those rucks and those and it's like no, I don't. I want to be. I'll be on the sideline. I'll be on the field, but the less participation I can have, the better. Thanks.
Yeah. You could just play one of the back positions, right?
I think scrum half.
Yeah.
But you've got to be able to run fast, but I can't do that either.
Hey, all rugby needs audience members.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to go to a rugby game with somebody that like knows the sport and just have them talk me through it. Like that would be fun for me. But
I think that the difficult thing for me with rugby is I didn't have anybody to talk me through watching football. Like the Raiders, or my friend's a big Saints fan. And I found just watching the games, I could understand. I got the rules. I could see, after a few years, I was, false start, somebody's offside, and I was calling penalties and things like that. And my friend who's been watching it for 20 years, he's just like, I don't see any of this. But with rugby, it's just a mess for me.
Yeah. I know there's structure and I know there is strategy, but it's really hard to see because it's a quick game. Like it's a fast game.
Yeah.
And I know there are those, like, when you get the rucks and you get the scrums and everything, and I see, like, I can recognize things are happening. I'm like, why did that happen though? I have no clue why any of that happened. It's tough. And this is an interesting thing too, like thinking of, because I tried to get into like English football, and like I passively follow it, like really passively, and it came down to like choosing a team to support, and it's a weird thing to do when you don't have like that regionalism, you don't have like you're not close to it, so you have to choose a team. And I don't know, I ended up like being like, well, I like Liverpool and I like Chelsea and I don't like either of the Manchesters. And so it was like, but I don't know why. I liked Chelsea because they had like Peter Cech was their goalie, and I liked he wears the helmet, and I play goalie.
Yeah.
I liked him. And Liverpool, I don't know why I liked Liverpool. I liked their colors.
We're the best.
I know. And I remember somebody tried to convince me that that Tottenham was the best because their logo is a rooster, I think, right?
Yeah, it's something like that. Yeah.
Hotspurs. So why did you choose the Raiders and your friend choose the Saints?
Well, he chose the Saints because his brother is a huge 49ers fan.
Okay.
And his dad was as well. And the first game he was, when it was on Channel 4 in the UK, which is kind of like our PBS.
Okay.
You know, like sort of what we call terrestrial TV, like free TV.
Terrestrial TV. I love that
Yeah.
phrase. That's great.
The first game he was allowed to stay up and watch when he was a kid was 49ers v the Saints. And because his dad and brother were cheering for the 49ers, he just immediately chose the Saints. And I chose the Raiders when they were in Auckland.
Yeah.
Just purely because my dad worked for an American company.
Oh.
And their headquarters were in, at the time, Glendale, in California.
Okay.
And he just picked up a baseball cap for us with Auckland Raiders on and stayed with it ever since.
Yeah, it's funny how that happens too. Like, I remember my dad went on a business trip because I'm from Utah and there's no American football team out there. There's like no American football, but it's the biggest sport. Like maybe basketball is a little bigger, but yeah, he brought me back like Denver Broncos stuff. And, yeah, and I just remember being like, this is cool. Yeah, I like the Broncos, but I don't know. It's tough. That's the weird thing about like living in a place where there aren't any professional sports teams. Like we had the Utah Jazz in basketball.
Yeah.
But you have to choose like who you support for other reasons besides you're close to them.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do, you know, like cuz I don't know, it's easy for me to switch alliances a lot of times because if a team starts sucking and it's not fun to watch them anymore, it's like, oh, I'll just like somebody else, you know.
No, you've got. I think for me, it's just, you've got to stick with it. You've got to stick with it. I've been really lucky. I always say that, and it's I try not to sound like I'm being smug here, but in the 20 years I've been watching Liverpool, I've been so lucky as a fan because they have won literally every single competition they could have won.
Yeah.
You know, so I feel really, really lucky in that respect.
Yeah.
So that's why it's quite nice when with Newcastle with this big money takeover that they've just had. So in the next few years they might start winning some stuff. They should do with the amount of money. So hopefully they do.
Yeah. But if not, you still like Liverpool, so you know. It's
yeah. So I'm not. Hey, if Newcastle win the league and they only lose 2 games, as long as they lose both games to Liverpool, I'm happy.
That's a good attitude, and I think you're right. Honestly, I think you're right. Like, even though I'm like in my 30s now and it's a little late, I feel like I need to start like choosing teams to just stick with and just like stick with it through good and bad. Because I think you're right. Like, John, do you know John Green? He's an American author. He wrote like
no, I don't know him.
Yeah, he wrote like The Fault in Our Stars. That's his big film and book. But he's a Liverpool fan and he does a podcast that I really like. And so he talks about, you know, like he does a whole podcast episode on You'll Never Walk Alone, and I watched that. I mean, that amazing, like, I can't remember what it is. It's like a 30-second clip of, I can't remember the goalie's name, but the keeper that just like, I think it was I can't remember if it was like to win the league or not, but he makes those 2 saves on the goal line just like back to back, where I gotta look it up now.
I think it's the one if it's the one I think you're talking about, it's Jerzy Dudek in the Champions League final.
Yes, that's who it is.
When he just puts his hands out and Shevchenko, and the ball goes over I was watching that game, and I still don't know to this day how the ball didn't end up in the back of the net.
That's what he says, and I rewatched it, and it doesn't make sense to me. Like, how does that not score? How does that not go in? Oh man, but that's the thing is like, the suffering that you go through for like years and years of like not winning and doing poor, then to like get to that moment, like that makes it all worth it, and it makes that moment even sweeter than anything else.
You remember it as well. I used to, not so much now, but I used to be able to name the starting lineup. I used to I used to have a habit of I don't know if I should say this, but when I used to come in drunk after going out, I used to have a habit of putting my laptop on, and this was back in the day when laptops had CD drives. Stick the Champions League final in the in the laptop and fall asleep listening to the commentary.
Just listening to it, not even watching it.
Yeah.
That's great. You can like, but you're playing it in your mind, you know? That's amazing. I love that. I guess we should get into the introduction portion. So, if you want to introduce yourself, you can say who you are, as well as what you're drinking today. Also,
Well, my real name is Scott. I'm on Twitter at Roll or Nothing. That's kind of the little space I'm trying to carve out for myself. In sort of the tabletop and D&D specific sort of world. And tonight I am just drinking Ribena, just juice.
just
That's all it
juice.
is. Yeah, it's nothing exciting, unfortunately.
Well, I've never heard of it. What is it called?
It's called Ribena.
Ribena?
Ribena, I think it is.
Ribe. Okay.
It's kind of like, I don't know if you guys have, we call it diluted juice over here in the UK. It's kind of like there's loads of different, it's normally like orange and stuff like that, and then you top it up with water. It's like a soft drink.
Yeah. We don't do that.
Yeah.
Not that I know of. But there is something that's called like sangria, which is similar. It looks like because I looked it up and it's black currant.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Is it carbonated or uncarbonated?
Uncarbonated, just water and like a concentrated sort of fruit juice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna have to find it. I'm gonna have to try it.
My wife was telling us this is before we met, but so a few years ago, she went to Florida with her parents, and she didn't drink coffee at the time, and I know she was struggling to find something to drink when she was over there, and they had to go to they went to a supermarket, and there was like an English aisle that sold English products, and they found some juice. Some Robinsons is one of the big brand names in the UK for juice, but it was like $10 for a bottle, you know.
Yeah, I just bought. I can't remember what it is. It's like mustard. It's like yellow mustard. I can't remember the brand of it now. I think it's from England, and it's just so spicy. Like,
not Coleman's, is it?
Yeah, it's Coleman's. Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's so spicy. Like, because I'm used to like out here, it's just like vinegar and mustard seed. Like that's all it is, and it's super mild. And you just like put it on a hot dog, and it's great. But I didn't realize how spicy it was, and I put like a good amount on. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna die.
I would have loved to have seen your face. I love Coleman's mustard. However, I do love American yellow mustard as well.
Oh yeah,
it's on hot dogs. It's peak.
There's nothing better, and actually, like one of my favorite things to do is just do like a bratwurst with like a ton of sauerkraut and American yellow mustard. Oh, it's so good.
I'll be right there for that. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure in Germany they're probably just like so mad at that, but it is, man, that's my favorite thing.
I love sauerkraut. It's very underrated, I feel, in the UK.
Oh, really?
I think so. We had some on our Christmas dinner.
What did you have for Christmas dinner?
We had a joint of beef. And trimmings. Like we have Yorkshire puddings.
I've always wanted to try Yorkshire pudding. I've never had it.
They're great. Yeah, great. They're hard to make though. I can't make them very well. Mine always end up looking like slightly puffy pancakes, but they're supposed to rise up, you know. So mine are terrible. But yeah, had sauerkraut, fried some smoky bacon. Chopped up the Brussels sprouts because nobody likes Brussels sprouts just as Brussels sprouts.
Yeah, you got to do something.
And then sauerkraut and just fried all of that together.
Oh, yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah,
that's a great call. I'm interested in this actually. I was thinking about this in the UK. Is there a lot of like uncaffeinated tea?
There's lots of herbal teas and what we class like herbal teas with like. Which I've just started getting into in the last sort of 6 months or so, because my wife likes herbal teas, but I usually get left with the one she doesn't like. So like the apple and cinnamon ones and things like that she doesn't like. But yeah, they're nice. But maybe only like I can have like 1 cup before bed,
Yeah.
something like that. I prefer regular English tea, if you forgive the phrase.
It's black tea, right? Like,
Well, yeah, it's. I think it's actually technically it starts off as green tea, and then I think the leaves are dried off, and that's where the black tea comes from. But yeah, just milk, no sugar.
yeah, yeah. It's Do you know the comedian Greg Davies?
Yeah,
Yeah, he's one of my favorite comedians. I just think, and Taskmaster is like, I think one of the greatest shows on TV right now.
Yeah, me and you were talking about that over Twitter. I've never actually watched it.
You're How can you like Greg Davies? And I guess because he does TV. I forgot that.
Yeah.
I always forget that he does TV. Like, but man, he's so good. Like, it just shows you how funny he is, because all this stuff that he does is basically off the cuff, and he talks with, who's that guy that played the werewolf in Twilight, like Taylor Lautner, whatever his name is.
Oh yeah.
He does an interview.
I've seen the interview. It's great.
Yeah, it's great.
It's really funny.
And they talk about
funny.
like how to do the tea. And
yeah,
I was watching that. I was like, yeah, I have no idea what I'd do. Like, I don't know the proper order for that at all.
I was talking with another guy on Twitter. I'll get his Twitter handle, just because I don't want to get it wrong.
That's fair.
Because that would be terrible. And we were talking about tea because he is from Scotland, I believe. So it's the guy I was speaking to is at Lost Haven Art.
Oh yeah.
The guy that I was speaking to.
Yeah,
and he was talking about tea on Twitter as well, and he was slightly scarred by I think he seen a video or heard somebody talking about how you make tea in America, and I was like, ooh, it was concerning to say the least.
So what is the process? Like,
boiling water.
Okay.
In a kettle.
Okay.
Tea bag in.
Yeah.
Then hot water.
Yeah.
This next bit is slightly up for debate in the UK. So I always stir my tea and then let the tea bag steep in there for a bit first. Squeeze the tea bag, then I put my milk in. But some people put milk before taking the tea bag out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But always milk after the water. Always.
Yeah, you would never like. Why would you do milk first? That seems always like a bad idea. Like, aren't you just asking to like potentially curdle the milk sometimes? You know, like.
I just don't think you'd be able to get a good judge of how strong your tea is.
That's a good point. And I've actually never squozen the tea bag. That's a good idea, because that's like where all the like strong flavors probably are trapped, is like in the tea bag.
You've got to put enough force on to mash it up against the side of the cup to get all the rest of the flavor out. But if you burst the tea bag,
it's done.
You're knackered.
Chunky tea.
Yeah. It's like, when you eat it, if you get some like coffee grounds or something in your coffee, and you're like, you can almost chew it.
Yeah. See, I never.
You don't want bits in a liquid.
Yeah, and I never got into coffee. Like it makes I grew up Mormon, so I never like drank coffee and didn't drink tea as well, like caffeinated tea. But it's interesting now, since I've started drinking like caffeinated tea and things like that. It's there is a process. Like, I've realized I have a process. I don't have a kettle, so I just do like a pot, just boil pot, tea bag, water in, and then I do sweetener next. I do sweetener after that, because I usually do honey, and I like the honey to dissolve in the tea. So I like it while it's hot, and then I add the milk afterwards, because that then I know what temperature it's going to be at least.
Yeah. I find I've heard that a lot of, I don't know if a lot is the wrong phrase, but I hear it's not common. Again, I don't know if that's right. Anyway, I've heard some Americans don't have kettles.
Yeah, I would say the majority of Americans don't own kettles.
That's to a Brit, that is strange.
Yeah.
When we were getting our kitchen remodeled,
Mm-hmm.
as you guys would say. Um, the first thing me and my wife bought was a kettle and a toaster.
Really?
Yeah,
I mean,
the
like,
first things.
maybe it's 50-50. Like, maybe 50% of like Americans have a kettle. But how do you guys feel about electric kettles then?
Yeah, that's what we've got. Yeah, just fill it up, flick it on.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
yeah, that's all it is. Yeah.
Because I I think if I ever bought a kettle, I'd want like a stovetop kettle, like one that you like
Oh, with you
boil
put on
there.
the and then it whistles.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I like
Yeah,
the
that
whistle. It's fun.
yeah, that feels so. It feels it'd be cool, but it feels very like oldie worldy to me,
It is.
like a period drama type of prop
Yeah.
almost.
Like in Downton Abbey, that's what they all have. It's
Yeah,
just a bunch of
yeah.
kettles over there.
In a horror movie, you know there's something going really bad because the kettle is just sitting whistling for 5 minutes, and you think, well, that person has been found and been killed by Jason or Freddy or whoever.
Oh, that's true. Like after they're murdered, just in the like that's a great scene actually. You have like the murders happening, so the tea kettle goes off, and they go to like get the tea. They're murdered, and then left on the floor, and you just hear the tea kettle going in the
Yeah,
background.
screaming. Yeah.
After this is a good movie. If this hasn't been done, this should be done. Like that's an
Well,
incredible
the
scene.
the one scene I can think of off the top of my head is in a Harry Potter film. I don't know if you've seen the Harry Potters.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't remember which one it is, but it's one of the later ones. I think
Okay.
it's in the later half. But it's the one where Harry starts having it might which is the one with
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
at the start where the caretaker and he's dreaming that he's in that old house.
Yes, that's right. I
And the
forgot about
caretaker
that.
thinks, oh, it's the bloody kids, and he puts his kettle back down and he goes up, and then when he gets killed, it sort of looks through his window and you hear his kettle whistling. I'm sure you can. I
Yeah,
could be
that's
wrong, but I'm sure it
right.
is.
I've got okay. Now I got to rewatch, or at least rewatch that scene to find out.
It's the one with Mad Eye in the first one with Mad Eye, and when
Is
he's
it
not
five?
Mad Eye.
I think it's the fifth one.
May-
Order of the
Maybe
Phoenix.
five, yeah.
I don't remember. It's when they start getting really dark. Like that's when like the tone changes in the movies, at least.
Which is the one? It might be four, I think. It might be four
So
because
Goblet
isn't
of
that the one with the
Fire is
Triwizard
four.
tournament?
Yeah, Goblet of Fire is four.
I think it's that one because it's the one. I'm sure it's the one where Mad Eye is first in it, but it's not
That's
Mad Eye.
right.
Sorry, spoilers there. If anybody
Yeah.
hasn't seen it.
If you're spoiling Harry Potter, I think you're okay. Like I think that's a safe spoil at this point. What other British comedians are some of your top favorites?
My favorite stand-up comedian probably is Lee Evans.
I don't know Lee Evans.
He's technically he's retired from everything now. He's not that old. He's not. He's probably only in his 50s or so. But I think
Mm.
he's got a young family, and he just said, "I've had enough." But you'll recognize him. He's in There's Something About Mary.
I've actually never seen There's Something About Mary.
Oh.
Only
Have you
clips of it.
seen Mouse Hunt?
Yeah. Yes, it's been a long time, but yes, I have
He's
seen
one of the
Mouse.
brothers
Oh,
in Mouse
really?
Hunt. Yeah,
I should rewatch Mouse Hunt. That's a great film.
it's a great film. Yeah, Christopher Walken in that film.
Yeah,
It's a great like little cameo appearance.
yeah. It's an underrated film, like super
Totally underrated.
underrated.
Yeah,
I need
but
to
he's
check
just
that out.
yeah he's I've seen him a couple of times live. He's funny and it's just so he's so animated.
Mm,
Like he's if you've ever seen any of his stand up, all he ever part of his joke he works into his sort of bit if you like, but he always sweats on
mm,
stage loads. He always wears like a suit pants, shirt, and a suit jacket. But like about halfway through the show, his jacket
just
is dripping.
drenched.
You can see, yeah, it's like you can see it's just slowly getting. If he's got like a dark blue suit on, just it's almost black at the end of it. He's so sweaty, and he always has a towel, and he always works that in. But yeah, he's
Mm.
great. He's got so much energy, and it's just funny.
Um, so you're running Descent into Avernus right now. I've
Yeah.
wanted to run it. How do you like it so far?
So far, I think I enjoy the setting. It's never something I've played in going to the Nine Hells as a player. or ran. So I think that's really interesting.
Mm.
I have heard, not complaints, that's too strong of a word, but for some more experienced DMs, it feels very linear. And
Yeah.
I think reading it, I would not class myself as an experienced DM.
Yeah.
But it does feel that way, but not in a bad way. You don't feel like you're railroading your players. There is a few at the start, a few sort of grouped together small-ish dungeon crawls.
Okay.
And I thought it's important to get feedback sometimes and just be a little bit just blunt and just ask, hey, how have you found this? How do you find that? What did you think of this part? Without giving any spoilers away, of course, but I said, look, does it feel like, it's one dungeon crawl after another? Do you feel like you're just being led down a certain path?
Yeah.
All of my players said no.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's great. That's exactly what I want, even though it feels very set. I mean, even in the book, I don't know if you've ever read it, but at the start of each chapter, there is even it's like a little flow chart that says recommend players are at this level for this, then this level for this, and there's like 4 sections per chapter.
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't feel like it's too linear.
Yeah.
And then when you get into Avernus proper, it kind of opens out anyway. So they're not quite there yet. They're not right into the Nine Hells, but it feels like it opens up a bit more.
Yeah, that's cool. Because I've always loved, like, I love the idea of going to hell. Like, that is such a cool concept for me. And I've wanted to run it, but I've never had any players that want to do it. So that's an important part, I guess. And that's interesting. How long have you been DMing for?
I've been DMing for now probably just over 12 months, I would say.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I started off with little one-shots and little smaller adventures that maybe not campaigns, just adventures that lasted 2 or 3 sessions. Found smallish stuff on the DM's Guild, which I think is a great resource for sort of creators that have put stuff on there, which is fantastic. So things like that. And then I stumbled across the biggest one I ran before Avernus. I stumbled across a podcast called, oh my goodness, and it was amazing as well. I really should remember this. I've got the book here. I printed it off. I actually bought it from the DM's Guild, and I paid to have it bound.
Oh wow!
Because it was so cool. Yeah, so this is it. So it's called, I don't know if you'll be able to see it on the camera, but it's called Domain of the Nameless God.
Oh, I don't know it.
And it's by a guy called Travis Vengroth, who's just started doing some stuff with Wizards of the Coast. And they made that into sort of I'm doing it justice, but it's kind of like a narrative actual play. So you don't hear them discussing a lot about what dice rolls and stuff they've done. It's almost like they've played it and then put the acting over the top of it.
Edited it out.
So it's very narrative, yeah. And it's brilliant. The music is fantastic. It's so atmospheric.
Yeah.
I would really highly recommend you listen to it, especially the first series. And that's the one you've probably heard where they got Jeff Goldblum into the second series.
No, I haven't heard of that.
So it was so good, and they start talking about a second series, and they managed to get Jeff Goldblum in to play a new character in the second series, and it was just like, whoa,
that's insane,
unbelievable. But yeah, check those guys out.
Is it Dungeons and Dragons?
Yeah, it's D&D.
Wow,
yeah, D&D 5e. So it's great. I'm gonna try and find. I'll try and find the name of the podcast, and I'll drop you a message and I'll let you know what it is.
Perfect.
They do one called Tales from the, I think, White Vault, which is kind of like a, John Carpenter's The Thing. I think it's kind of that sort of vibe. But I'll be honest, I haven't listened to that one.
Yeah.
But that one, that Domain of the Nameless God, is fantastic.
Yeah.
Really, really good.
That's cool. So in your in your part of the world, how popular is like Dungeons and Dragons?
I feel like it's probably a skewed answer, but since I've gotten into it, I feel like it's just went
Yeah, it does feel that way,
over the
doesn't
last few
it?
years.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been playing now since about 2015,
Mm,
and just it just feels like it's just went like that, year
yeah.
on year on
Oh
year.
wow. You've been playing a while. 7 years. That's a good amount of time playing. Did you start in fourth edition?
No, no, five E,
Hopped in 5e.
yeah,
Yeah, it does like yeah, when I talk about Dungeons and Dragons with just random people like at work and things, it's interesting. The reactions I get are very much like, "Oh, I've always wanted to try that. Like I've always wanted to play." It's not like, "Oh, that's weird," which is
yeah.
it's odd to I don't know, like
I don't feel like there is the, for want of a better word, stigma attached to Dungeons and Dragons anymore that
yeah,
there is with things like, Warhammer and Games Workshop sort of
LARPing.
things. Yeah, and LARPing and things like that, and more sort of army-like tabletop war games.
Yeah,
I don't feel like there's the stigma in it with that because I mean you don't need models, you don't need anything really.
yeah,
You don't even with D&D Beyond. Technically, you don't even need dice anymore. I can't remember
true.
the last time I rolled a physical dice.
Oh, you gotta roll physical dice still.
I've got my dice tray and I've got some lovely
You
dice, and
gotta
then
roll
honestly,
them.
they've been neglected.
They're mad at you now, and they're gonna roll like shit the next time you try to roll with
I
them.
can hear them sort of like shaking in the bag behind us now. You're talking about them. Keep your voice down.
The dice are angry.
Hmm.
I that's one thing that I've been grateful for as like a DM is I like you can hide your rolls like and so I love rolling physical dice when I DM because my players like they don't need to know what I'm rolling, and so
Yeah,
but when I'm a player, which is rare now, I usually just do digital dice also. It's
yeah,
it's a lot easier for everyone to see. And there's that fun like shared excitement or shared disappointment when everybody sees the number pop up.
yeah. It is. It's great when if somebody rolls a natural 20 on an attack,
Yeah.
everybody cheers, everybody's animated. It's
Yeah.
great. I think the one thing I would say, I agree with you on the physical dice as a DM. I think there's always you get almost a sense of impending doom if you get hit by a monster,
Mm.
and then you hear the DM picking up 3, 4, 5, 6 dice, and you're just thinking, "Holy shit!
Yeah. Oh,
How much damage am I taking
what
here?"
is happening here? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
No, unless they're all D4s, put them down.
I don't want to see this roll. Not at
No, no,
all.
absolutely not. How many? If they've got if the sides of those dice is in double digits, put them down.
I mean, that's true. If you're rolling above a D10, if you crit on a D10 as a DM, oh man,
Yeah,
it's gonna be bad.
yeah, you're in for a world of hurt.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. I forgot. I'm trying to remember. I've written down a format for the show, and obviously it's going great. I obviously follow it well every time. But I forgot to
that's
ask.
it. Improv. That's it. Improv coming out.
I guess so. I'm already look at that. I don't even need a class.
Yeah.
I can just improv already.
Just go, turn up, get your certificate, and leave.
Is there like a test I can take where I can test out of the class? Is that possible?
Just play this. Just play this chat with them and say, "Look, done. Look, I had this. I asked none of those questions. We still had a good time."
How pompous would that be to just roll into an improv class and be like, I don't think I need any of this. So is there any way we can move this along?
You can just imagine if people, "Wow, this is great. This is he's nailed that."
Unfortunately, it's not even like I actually don't write down questions. I just it's like Craig Ferguson used to have a show, and I loved how he always like would rip up the cards, like that he would have people write questions for him,
Yeah.
and then he'd always tear them up in front of his guest and just throw them. And I thought that was so good. But I do have I actually ask people at the beginning if they would like to start with either a question or a story. So do you have a preference at the halfway point, question or story?
Let's go for a question.
All right. Let's do a D&D related question. You've been playing longer than you've been DMing, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Um, so what made you want to try DMing rather than just continually playing?
I think it sounds like an easy answer off the top of my head, which I wasn't kind of expecting, but the first big campaign that we played in, that was a sort of a published one, if you like, apart from the starter set, which is great.
Yeah.
After that, we went into Storm King's Thunder.
Oh yeah.
And the guy who was DMing for us is one of my friends. He doesn't play D&D anymore. He's a great guy, but he's what we describe as like a hobby butterfly.
That's me. That's me 100%.
Yeah. So he'll start doing like, what if there's a new army come out in Warhammer, he'll concentrate all his energy on that. And I think about 6 months ago or 12 months ago, he started getting back into Magic the Gathering.
Yeah.
So he's put all of his focus on that. And then the D&D kind of dropped away. And I have whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, it probably goes both ways sometimes. But I get a little bit obsessed about stuff myself. But I love D&D.
Yeah.
I just can't get enough of it. And I thought, if the only way that I can get a game is to run a game,
yeah,
then that's what's got to be done. It was more of necessity than at first wanting to do it. But after that, I really got into it. And when you can put a scenario in front of a group of players for them to succeed at or fail at, regardless, not you don't set your players up to fail, but there's always that chance.
Sure.
And it just to create some memories for others and myself as well. I remember some stuff that in Storm King's Thunder, every single combat, even if it was with one goblin or a dragon, I would get nervous. Not to the point of not wanting to fight in the combat or not going into it, but I was so scared of my character dying because I loved him so much. And if I could give somebody the chance to create a few memories with that, then that's a win for me. Plus, I feel like as a DM, I like to think I'm not against the players. I'm just helping create the world around them, and they get to do whatever they want to do in there.
Yeah.
It's their story. I'm just facilitating it.
Yeah.
That's how I think about DMing.
It's a good way to look at it, honestly. I think that's a really good way to look at it. And it's a really weird thing, right? Like, it's weird because I don't know. I think I prefer playing over DMing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm one of the people that I definitely prefer to play rather than Dungeon Master. But like, I started DMing and none of my friends really were into D&D yet. And so I like got all my friends into D&D. And now I've just kind of like, it's just kind of expected that I'll DM.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's tough because what you're saying is really true. Like, if you can create just a world for your friends to play around in and have an experience that they could never have in the real world, like, that's really what it is about. And there's a real, it's so much fun just to like be kids again.
Yeah, 100%.
And just make shit up off the top of your head and roll some dice.
Yeah, it's that same level of escapism for me that video games offer.
Yeah.
But I think not so much anymore that I'm getting a bit older. I'm a dad now, so I've got a daughter. So the sitting playing on my PlayStation till 3:00 in the morning is long gone.
Yeah.
But what I think's particularly, you could say, healthy about Dungeons and Dragons is at least you can only do it on a certain day for a finite amount of time.
True.
Because not everybody is going to want to sit and play for 8 hours.
Yeah.
So at least you can have that escapism and immerse yourself into it for a good, 3 or 4 hours is probably, I would say, the average length of a session, I would
think you're
say.
right. Yeah.
But then it's healthy enough that you can get into it and forget about work or family stuff or whatever you've got going on.
Yeah.
And then you've still got to go back to it, but it's healthy that there's a almost a forced constraint on you there that you've got to go back to it. And I think you have to. You can't just bury your head in the sand with stuff at times, and you've got to unfortunately deal with the real world as crappy as it is sometimes. But
Yeah.
I think that's healthy that there's a break point there to go back to real life.
Yeah.
But then also gives you that next session to look forward to, and you're thinking about, and it gives you something to keep working towards. If you're having a particularly rough time at work or something like that, I've got another 3 days and we'll play D&D again, and makes it. On a Tuesday, I remember usually about 12 o'clock dinner time-ish, something like that. I'll sit and I'll be doing stuff at work, and I'll be conscious I've got this stupid grin on my face because I'm doing my work, but then my mind's wandering, thinking, I'm playing D&D tonight, and it just immediately lifts your mood.
It does. Yeah, it really gives you something to look forward to. And I like what you said earlier. It is kind of like a need. It almost becomes like as important as anything else that like you have chosen, like an optional thing to do. It rides that fine line between something you like want to do and something you need to do.
Yeah.
It's weird how it does that. It goes back and forth there. Because like I would rather, even though I prefer to play, like I haven't played in a while, and I will still continue to DM because I just really want D&D in my life. Like, it's almost a need. Like you were saying, it really is so close.
It goes back to that, thing about if you want something to happen, you've sometimes just got to do it for yourself.
Yeah.
And it may not be the exact perfect version of it, but like you say, you can't make somebody run a game. You can't make somebody DM. And I've seen lots of players, and this is not a criticism in any way, shape, or form, who just don't want a DM. They've got no interest in it. They don't want the pressure of it. They don't want the planning. They don't want the extra time. And that's totally fair, because D&D should be whatever you want or need it to be.
Mm-hmm.
So that's totally fair. But for me, it was a case of I need to facilitate this myself and get a game going. Plus, as well, I think it's also helped me be a better player, because you can kind of not anticipate what the DM wants, but you can. I think you pick up on some cues a little bit more, or a certain part of a description. If they mention a certain object or a certain piece of furniture more than once in a room, something like that.
Yeah.
The way your companion looks after you've been hit by a monster, how a monster looks after you've hit it with your longsword, and it bites into the nape of the neck, and you can see it. The descriptions all add to it, and it helps you become a little bit more fine-tuned, I guess, in every other aspect.
Yeah, I agree with that. I honestly, like, I think every player should DM at least once. Not because, like you said, like, I don't think everybody should DM. A lot of people don't want to, and that's great. There are still, you need your players,
Yeah.
But, like, definitely for me, I kind of had like the opposite, I guess, revelation, because I would DM, and then my friend had started running Curse of Strahd, which I was playing in, and that actually helped me be a better. I guess they just interrelate like so much, because it made me a better DM, realizing like. Because when I first started playing, I was like, oh, I'm so excited to play this character. I just want to like do whatever I want, and just whatever I think about, I'll just do, because that sounds really fun to me. And realizing like as a player, it's not just about doing what your character wants. Like there is still a group component to it. You need to like you want everybody to have fun. You want everyone to have a good time and everyone to have a story that comes out of it. Maybe not with their character, but at least something they remember.
Yeah.
And realizing like as a player, and it's very true for the DM also. Like you're all supporting each other obviously as players, but you need to support the DM too. Like that's a really important thing because it's hard being the DM. It's a lot of work, and it doesn't mean it's not rewarding. But there have definitely been times when I've been playing, and the DM has dangled something out in front of me, and I just didn't. I didn't take it just because like I was so excited to play, and now I've realized like you said, if they keep describing a piece of furniture in the room, it's like, yeah, maybe I should check that out, you know.
So I played. I'm a player in a Curse of Strahd campaign at the minute as well, and I played on Friday night, and there was I'm going to try and be careful because I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but there was a moment of revelation about the land of Barovia itself, and the character that I play is he's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So Dr. Jekyll, part of him, he is a private investigator from Baldur's Gate, who is a very logical, realistic, pragmatic kind of guy. And he said to the character, so I love the role play part of D&D as a player.
Yeah.
I try and role play as much as I can.
Yeah.
And I said that in character that he was struggling with this revelation. He didn't seem to be like himself. He seemed a bit distant. He was giving people a little bit of a cold shoulder, which he'd never done before. He's quite an amicable, pleasant guy. And I said, I'm going to go back to a tower to see if a note had been answered that I was expecting a response on. I says, I'm not going to hold up the party. I says, so I'll go alone. I says, if you want to go off. So I left, and the party followed us. And as we were walking up this path, the DM said, you can notice in the undergrowth just beside the edge of the trail that the undergrowth has been disturbed and moved. There's nothing lying there, but you can see it's clearly evident that something has barged through the trees and shoved this undergrowth out of the way. And as I was role-playing, I said, JR, that's my character's name, because of the mood he is in, and he's not feeling himself, he's not going to investigate it.
Yeah.
And he said, that's fair enough, because normally he would.
Yeah.
But then none of the other players, bear in mind there's 5, none of them chose to investigate either.
Yeah.
And I felt like I almost wanted to retcon the role play because I actually felt bad for the DM because nobody took him up on that, you know?
Yeah. I think that's interesting. I think that's interesting though as well that you made the conscious decision like to say I would check this out, but I'm not going to, because that can still be really helpful to hear, like as a DM, when it's like, listen, like me as a person, like, you know, Parker, I'm very interested in that, like that, but I know my character is not, and I think that's awesome. That like I think that's a good tactic to use because like it would help me as a DM. Like if I heard one of my players say that, I'd be like, well, at least they listen, you know, like at least, because sometimes it just feels like people aren't listening, and there's no worse feeling as a DM. I'd rather have players actively try to sabotage me than like not listen to what I'm saying.
Yeah, than just be too passive. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I try. It's always okay. What does he look like again? Is there any exits in the room? If you get the same repeat questions, it can be not frustrating, but it's just like there's probably a bit of miscommunication because nobody's wanting to say, you know, if somebody's making a note or something like that. It's not. Then I wouldn't say it's a case of nobody is listening.
Exactly.
That's the way I feel like anyway.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, they're taking notes, they're trying to form a plan in their head, maybe what they want to look at, what they want to do, what they want to say in character is the next time the spotlight is on them, which is great. But but yeah, just sort of almost giving the cues back to your DM.
Yeah.
And I do all of my stuff as theater of the mind. I don't use Roll20 or anything
Oh,
when I'm playing
wow.
online. So
Nice.
all of my combat is theater
Oh, that's
of the mind.
cool. I like that.
So it adds another element to it that it's hard to keep track of.
100%.
But
Yeah.
in that respect, I certainly don't mind players saying, right, where is the two Grey Dwarfs that were fighting the barbarian? Where is that person? Where's the evil mage? Like, giving a recap every so often, that's fine.
Yeah.
Giving people the lay of the land, that's totally cool. But yeah, I think it's important to try and give cues back to your DM that you are taking in what they've said. At the end of the day, Mike, my DM, he clearly prepared something for that, even if it was just a simple discovery, but he's clearly taken time out during his preparation to put that in there.
Yeah. 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 I think you're right. Like, and I like what you said. It's a lot of times it's not that people aren't like listening. I think most people when they show up to play D&D, they're pretty invested. I think 90% of the time that's true. We have off days, obviously, but the hard thing is that and I definitely recognize my fault because I like will over describe things and I'll go like 2 or 3 steps ahead when really I need to just be like in the present scene and not like skipping ahead.
Yeah.
And so I do I recognize that when my players aren't usually giving me feedback, a lot of times I recognize the fault is with me. I haven't described something well enough, or like I've given them too much information and they don't know which direction to go with it.
Yeah.
And so, but I do like that, like, even when your players recap or give you that feedback, like in game, and they're just like, okay, now this is this, like, and this is this, like, yeah, the brush is undisturbed, and, like, I'm walking and it's sundown, like, if they just recap, it at least makes you feel heard as a DM, which to me, I guess that's something I really value. I've never really thought about it before.
Yeah, I think it's a big thing. One of the things I always struggle with personally is because when you're describing something, you're giving little snippets of plot points, and then 3 weeks later, it all knits together.
Yeah.
And then one of your players say, "Hey, that was who we spoke to 3 weeks ago in that tavern. Do you not remember? He gave you that job." And I'm struggling to sit there. And I'm sitting there like a DM going, try not to crack a smile because I'm thinking, they've got it. Thank God they've got it. They've been listening the whole time. And I'm like that, try not to crack a smile because you don't want to give anything away.
Yeah.
But it's just think, yes, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, really is those little moments that you just live for that you really make it all worth it. And when a player makes those connections that is hard to connect, it's such a good feeling.
The podcast for that, Domain of the Nameless God, by Travis Vengroth and the rest of his cast, is called the Dark Dice Podcast.
Oh, that sounds familiar.
The first series is, let's say, it's a masterpiece. There's no other way to say it. It is the music, just the music after the first sort of couple of episodes, when it kicks in, I goosebumps every single time.
Really?
Yeah, it's so good. I think he does a lot of the music and stuff himself as well, which I have massive respect for because I don't have a musical bone in my body. I love music, but I can barely play a drum.
Yeah.
Or a triangle or something. A cymbal.
To be fair, they're deceptively complex.
The guy in the orchestra who just stands at the back with the 2 big cymbals. Mm-hmm. I would mess that up.
I think that might be one of the hardest parts because you have to like track the music and you only have like one thing that you do, so you just have to wait, and if you miss that moment you basically screwed up everything you were supposed to do. So I think that's a hard part.
If you get time, check that out. Dark Dice Podcast. It's phenomenal.
Who are some of your favorite bands if you're into music?
I would say I've probably got a bit of an eclectic taste. I think probably everybody says that.
That's true.
But I love Ghost.
I don't know Ghost.
Yeah, you check those guys out there. They're probably one of my favorite bands.
Okay.
I love ZZ Top. I've
Oh
got
yeah.
in front of us here. I've got a ZZ Top album framed because it's one of my favorite.
Oh nice.
Um, I love a band called Down as well.
Down.
It's the lead singer of the guy from Pantera.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Um, I love the first Pantera record. I'm
Yeah.
just starting to get into a bit Uriah Heep.
Oh yeah.
Like a British sort of prog band.
I know Uriah Heep. I haven't listened to much of their stuff, but I know the name for some reason.
Check out the album Demons and Wizards. It's a belter, as we say in the Northeast. It's a belter.
I mean, the name alone has me convinced it's gonna be good.
I love Doctor Hook. I'm going to see the last member of Doctor Hook in a couple of weeks. He's playing in Newcastle.
Okay.
So I love Doctor Hook. Tina Turner.
Yeah.
The Police. AC/DC.
The classics.
Yeah, just and as long as you can turn it up loud, then I'm good to go.
Yeah,
really.
yeah. Well, I'm impressed if you compliment a podcast's music, because I feel like all podcast music is kind of the same, like it's all just like electronic with a beat and like calm. So
yeah, maybe free to use stuff or something like that. Yeah,
exactly. So that's impressive, and I like music. I definitely go through phases, but if a podcast has good music, that's a good sign.
Yeah, I've been known to. I'm an album killer, so if I find an album that I like, I will just listen to it over and over and over again.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I remember back with CDs, it was very much like I would listen to the CD until it would break.
Yeah,
it would just be. I remember I did it with like I was big into like emo music, and the Ataris had an album, So Long Astoria, that I would listen to it like every time I'd mow the lawn.
Yeah,
and that thing was just scratched to hell by the time I was done with it. What's one of your favorite albums of all time?
If there's an album that if sometimes when you want to listen to some music, but you're not 100% sure what you want to listen to.
Yes,
and
100%.
There's always one album that you think, no matter what mood you're in, you can put it on.
Yes, I totally get that.
And it's by the album is NOLA by Down, because they're all from New Orleans, Louisiana.
Oh, really?
So it's NOLA. That album, it's quite heavy. It's metal. But yeah, it's a fantastic album.
Okay.
I can fall asleep listening to that.
Yeah. I've wanted to get into metal. I've always struggled. And here's the thing is, like, I recognize that metal music is some of the most, like, technically skilled music being produced.
Yeah.
It just, the drums are usually always good. The guitarists are usually always good. It's just the singer, I have really, like, with the voice, I really struggle a lot of times.
Yeah. To be fair, I'm exactly the same. If the guitar and the drums and everything are what I want it to be in music, but I don't like the singing voice, I can't deal with it.
It's really hard for me.
Yeah, so I can't push through that.
Yeah.
If I don't like the singing, I can't push through it.
Yeah. It's tough. I think like it has to be really, you have to be really talented with an instrument for me to appreciate what you're doing if you have bad lyrics, or bad voice.
Yeah.
So I do.
Album to check out if you want to try and get into some bit of heavier music. Check out an album by the band's called The Sword.
Okay.
And the album's called Warp Riders. And they are, you probably class them as a bit like stoner rock.
Yeah.
But they are into like D&D and Warhammer and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And Warp Riders is like a narrative album. And so there's some instrumental songs, there's some songs of singing, but it also tells a story about a guy trying to find some witches to find some more information on how to save his planet. Basically, that's what it's about. But There's some tracks that make you just want to like they're pounding and they're heavy, and there's other stuff which is a bit more mellow and chilled out. So it's great. Check that out if you want to try and get into some heavier stuff. It's not too the singing as well is not it's not scream. I can't get behind the screaming and stuff like that a lot of the time.
Yeah, it has to be really good screaming for me to like it.
Yeah, or just used very sparingly.
That's
for me.
fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
I can't. Oh my gosh, I can't remember the band that I was super big into. And they did that. They would like sing, and he had a really good voice, but then there would be screaming every now and again. I was like, yeah, this is. I can get into this. Like this is okay. Spring something. I can't remember what it is. Shoot. Oh well, I'll think of it when we're done. That's an interesting thing you just brought up that I hadn't thought about before. Is I think now what's happening with D&D, and like I think one reason why this renaissance is happening with Dungeons and Dragons is how people are now starting to realize how much D&D has influenced so many things in pop culture. Like if you looked at Hollywood films and how many of those people that have written or like directed or worked on these films have played D&D or been influenced by D&D in some way, it's probably pretty high.
Yeah.
And it's interesting now to think of like music. I bet there's a decent amount of musicians that also like probably, especially like those rock operas, they probably played D&D at some point in time. Like,
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So that's like, I never thought about that.
I know Chris Jericho, the wrestler.
Really?
He used to play D&D, yeah. When he was a kid, I remember he was on a podcast talking about it.
Huh.
And his character, I remember his character I'm sure it was called Haltane. His character, his name. And obviously he's into his music and stuff. These band and things like that. So yeah, you hear about guys like like Joe Manganiello doing it, and Vince Vaughn, and Vin Diesel, these like big Hollywood names that you necessarily maybe 10, 15 years ago you wouldn't associate with D&D.
No.
You'd never think in a million years Vin Diesel.
Oh yeah.
Dominic Toretto, that's who he is to everybody now. Playing D&D.
Yeah.
I'm going to finish working on my muscle car, then I'm going to go play Dungeons and Dragons.
Exactly. That'll be Fast and the Furious like 30. They'll just be playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. Rocking up to his friend's house in his V8 Mustang or something like that, and it's just like, yeah, I've got my dice and I've got my character sheet ready to go, and it's just like, this is bizarre.
When all the actors become too old to actually do any of the action, it'll just be them playing D&D on the big screen.
Yeah. But if you think though, they should have the voice acting down. Yeah,
I'd watch that. Yeah, I think maybe just now we're starting to realize like how influential and pervasive kind of the influence of D&D has been on popular culture. I tell this story, but like there's a bookstore in Portland called Powell's, and it's a great bookstore, like really, really good bookstore. The best, probably. I would argue it's one of the best in the Western United States. And they have a section called like our role-playing game pop culture, like 4 books. And I just think that's bonkers that we live in a world where we have like a role-playing game pop culture section. It makes no sense to me, but I love it. It just is nonsense to me.
Is that where you live? Do you live in Portland, Oregon?
Near Portland, Oregon.
Yeah.
Just moved here from Utah, so I think we reached our year mark this week, so it's definitely a different place than Salt Lake City, Utah, that's for sure.
Yeah. My geography is terrible, so I know roughly where Oregon is, but I don't know where. I'll be honest, I don't know where Utah is, so I apologize.
No, you don't have to apologize. It's funny because when you say like Newcastle, the United Kingdom and like England is just so much smaller. Like it's barely the size of a state, in the US.
I think you could fit like most of it. I think you could fit like the UK once and most of it again into Texas.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so but if you gave me a map of the United Kingdom or even of like Britain, and you said like, where's Newcastle? I'd be like, but like I know it's a place, I know it exists. Yeah. So I don't think you should feel too bad about when we have 50 states in the U.S. It's a giant country.
Yeah.
I don't think you should feel too
I've been to, funny enough, when I was a kid, I was lucky enough to go on holiday a few times to the States.
Oh, cool.
And I have been to Newcastle in California.
Oh, really? I didn't even know there was a Newcastle.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm talking like this was 1994.
Yeah.
So this is, 20, nearly 30 years ago. Jeez. Yeah, and there was some mini golf.
Oh,
just
yeah.
off the side of a freeway.
Is there mini golf in the UK?
Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna say there better be. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
It's my favorite way to play golf.
We have one just near us. It's called Ghetto Golf,
and
it's like an adult themed like mini golf because there's a bar and you can drink and stuff like that.
Oh, that's so cool.
But like one of the holes on it is like it's set up like the outside of a sex shop.
Oh yeah.
And like, there's another one that's like in a toilet.
Yeah.
Another one is in like a bar or something like that.
Oh man, that would be so fun. I would love that. Yeah, this weird thing happened, I think, when naming U.S. cities, that when people immigrated from England to the U.S., they just started calling everything new, like, New York and New Hampshire and everything, New Haven, everything was new, just because it wasn't the English version.
Old.
Exactly. And then what happened is once people went from the eastern United States to the western United States, they started naming everything just based off the eastern United States. Like, it's just, it's so weird how things are named in the U.S. It makes no sense.
Well, the thing with most, I don't know if most Brits are probably but if I'm talking about the United States and I'm talking about football and I'm talking about Seattle, like the Seahawks.
Seahawks, yeah.
Washington, DC. Nearly every single time a British go DC. No, like Washington State, like
the state,
the other side of the country.
Yeah, and it's much bigger. Like it's significantly larger.
Like 3,500 miles away from where you think it is.
Yeah, exactly. I lived near DC for a bit, and I think a lot of people move to the DC area just because they think it's like a lot bigger than it is.
Yeah,
it's not that big. Like not compared to like New York. That city is just mind-blowingly big. It's not like I've been to London. I've been to London. That's the only place in England I've ever been, and I was only there for like 2 or 3 days. And I remember the one thing that I wanted to try was fish and chips. Like I gotta do fish and chips. Like that's what you have to do. And this was the unfortunate thing about being from the US is the skin is still on the fish. And I was like, oh, I've never had fish with the skin still on. But that's where I learned about malt vinegar, like how good malt vinegar is on chips. But the ketchup in England was horrible. It was
I'm not a fan.
Garbage.
I don't like ketchup. We call it in the Northeast. We call it tomato sauce. But yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah, I love ketchup, but I like United States ketchup because it has like 200 grams of sugar in it, because of course it does.
Well, ketchup on a hot dog, Parker, yes or no?
Oh, always, yeah. I always do. I know.
See, never. I never have enough.
I know. My friend feels the same way. My best friend since kindergarten. But I think if you polled people in the US, probably 70+% of people put ketchup on hot dogs.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well,
what do you think the percentage is for Brits?
I honestly would say it's probably closer to 50-50.
Yeah.
And I would say
that's not bad,
out of that 50% that do put ketchup on their hot dogs, it's those horrible, cheap, nasty hot dogs that you get in tins.
Yeah.
We say, I'm going to apologize to you and your viewers now, but for the cheap hot dogs, we always say it's all lips and arseholes. That's all we say, because that's all it's made from.
Yeah, but you know what? At least they're using all of it. It's not going to waste.
Yeah.
If you can package lips and assholes in like a way that is consumable, good on you, you know?
Yeah.
Well done.
Hey, I mean, I've eaten them as well, and I will in the future. That's a given. But
Exactly. I'm not above that, all right?
no.
My dad is he loves cooking, and he always he cooks really good food. But I mean, the things that I remember growing up, like him teaching me about, was just like not good food, you know? Like it was a bologna sandwich. So it was like white bread, like cheap white bread, mayonnaise, and a slice of bologna, and that was it. Like
I don't even know what bologna is.
no one does. It's like it's like the hot dogs of deli meat. I don't is it pork? Maybe. Is it beef? Probably. It's probably all of them, all a little bit. Chicken's thrown in, I'm sure. It makes no sense. But then we'd also have like cornbread with honey on top and milk, and that was so good. These are like my favorite.
I've never had cornbread, but it looks amazing.
I would highly if you ever go to the southern United States, if you ever go to a barbecue place, if you ever go to an American barbecue place, man, you gotta get cornbread. It's just a little butter, a little honey. Oh
yeah, it looks tremendous.
It's pretty tremendous. I mean, there's bad cornbread, don't get me wrong, but I need to try puddings. Like that's what I need. I need to try a pudding at some point, but I just never have.
Well, like a sweet one.
I mean, the pudding in the U.S. is different, right? Like it's just like sweet goo.
Yeah.
There's no bread or no flour in it. It's just it's just goo, liquid goo. So I've never had like an English pudding before. That style.
Yeah. See, in over here, when we say pudding, basically a pudding is any sort of dessert.
Oh, really?
So if I said, oh well, what's for pudding? It could be like cake and custard, or it could be jam roly poly. It could be bread butter pudding. It's basically anything. It's anything. Like pudding is an all encompassing word. Like I could have cheesecake for pudding in the UK.
That's so confusing to me because there's Yorkshire puddings, there's figgy pudding. Like there you have puddings. So how can that be the classification?
It's all encompassing. Whatever it's basically whatever you have sweet after your main meal. That's pudding.
You can have you can have like cake for pudding, but you can also have pudding for pudding. That makes no sense.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I mean, we definitely do that in the U.S. It's hard to think of it though when you're in it, right? Like, that's the tough part.
And Yorkshire puddings are always savoury.
So
well, to me, they are.
What's in a Yorkshire pudding then?
Milk, water, self-raising flour. That's pretty much about it.
Okay.
And so, actually, I think you don't even have to, and eggs.
Yeah. Okay.
You can use all milk, or you can use all water as well, depending. Like we use all water usually because my daughter doesn't eat dairy. She has she's lactose intolerant.
Yeah.
So we use water, but you still get the same result.
I think actually I lied. I think if there's one, like if I ever went back to England or like Britain, the one thing I would want to try is English pies.
Yeah.
I've never had an English pie before, and I think I'm missing out.
Sweet or savory?
I want to try both for sure. Like I want to try a stout, like what is it? Steak and ale pie.
Yeah, steak and ale pie. Yeah,
that looks so good.
Yeah.
Because we have like chicken, we call them like pot pies here, so like chicken pot pie, which is just chicken and vegetables and gravy. But I don't know. Like I feel like there's something different about English pies.
You see, what you've said, you've opened up another can of worms there, Parker. You said gravy.
Yeah.
You know what color is your gravy?
I mean, you can have different colors of gravy, right? I will, and in the US you can, but most people would say brown gravy.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
ours is always brown. Yeah,
Yeah, so like I think most people say brown gravy, but you know you have sausage gravy, which is white. Country gravy is white. Chicken gravy is like cream colored. You know, uh,
yeah.
so it's always brown.
I remember getting like like biscuits and gravy
Yeah.
in the state, and I've
Oh,
seen it. I remember seeing it on the
love
menu,
biscuits and
thinking,
gravy.
but I remember seeing it and thinking, why would you put gravy on biscuits? Right,
Well,
biscuits goes with a cup of
biscuits,
tea.
exactly. Like biscuits alone, that's a whole different thing. In the
Yeah.
in. Ooh. What's your favorite biscuit then?
Mm. See, custard creams.
I want to try custard creams. I want to try what is it, jammy Dodgers?
Yeah, yeah.
I want
They
to try
can be a
jammy
bit
Dodgers.
dry if you get a rubbish jammy dodger, but
Mm,
they're nice though. You need a
yeah,
cup of tea with a jammy dodger.
that's how I feel. I feel that's a very big like tea thing, because like they're like digestives, right? They're similar to digestives, like
They're kind of I would say more jammy dodgers remind me more of like shortbread.
shortbread. Okay, yeah, yeah, and those are very dry.
So you need to dip, but then because they fall apart quick, you've got to get them in.
Quick, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
That's a fast dip to mouth
yeah,
thing. Well, Scott, it's been really fun talking with you. I
yeah.
honestly,
Really good.
one of my favorite conversations is just like how cultures are different. I love that. I think it's so fun. Um, to finish the tea talk, we do. You can choose. We always end with a game. You can choose whether we play Dungeons and Dragons to end, or we can make up our own game. So either one's fine.
D&D, definitely.
I think that's a good call.
Hey, oh, we're playing this game and it's super fun, cause it's never the same. That's right, join with us while we play this game. It's game time. Game time. That's right, it's game time. Game.
I think that's a good call. We ended on a really the one before this was real intense. So we'll see how this one goes. Um okay, so to catch you up on what's happened so far, there was like you were going through a forest with this guy, this like dark, sorry, my dogs are playing super hard right now. Oh no. Hey, guys, we're trying to play D&D in here. They don't respect D&D. They don't care. um
We've just ruled for initiative.
yeah, exactly. All right, I'm gonna go stop them because otherwise this is gonna be going on the whole time. Okay, so on the last session of D&D, let's see. So, essentially, like you were going through a forest with this guy named Mobius, and he said there was like a curse in the forest that was cursing owlbears, and it was like turning their eyes red. And so you found an owlbear that kind of had that happen, and you followed it, and it was revealed like when you came into a clearing in the forest, there was like a large red crystal in the forest, and there were a bunch of owlbears around it, and then like Mobius's hood fell off, and you saw that he had a red eye also, and he went up and like touched the crystal and disappeared, and then you followed and you found yourself in like a city, that everything kind of has like a red, so there's like a river that flows through this city, and it's a red river that flows through it. There's like a bridge that goes across it, and the red river flows underneath. And in this city, there was like a castle on a hill, and you sent like your raven familiar to go and like look over the castle, and you could see over this castle. It's more like a keep, so it's got the four walls and like a courtyard in the middle.
Yeah.
And in the middle of the courtyard, there was a tree with red apples, like red glowing apples growing on it. And then Mobius like had started walking towards the tree, and I think you had given him like a healing potion, and or it was a healing dart, I think was what it was. somebody like dipped the dart in like a healing potion and threw it at him. And so the red, you saw the red like go away from his eye, and you find yourself now like as you throw that dart, you see it sticks in. You see Mobius like he falls to the ground, and you see the red begin to disappear from his eye, and he awakens, and you see he kind of like shakes himself off, and he looks up at you, and he says, "Where? What happened? Where are we?"
You touched the crystal in the clearing. We ended up here.
I don't remember any crystal. It's just, it's got to be some sort of magic. I don't know. I don't even know how I don't remember anything before. The last thing I remember, I was wandering through a forest and I got attacked by an owlbear, and that's the last thing I really remember at all.
Did it bite you? Did it claw you?
I just remember we were fighting, and then everything going black, and all I remember is now being here with you.
Look at me.
You see,
And I'll sort of gently put my hands up on his face and sort of turn his head and look at his eyes to make sure that this red has fully dissipated.
Yeah, as you look, you see within the right eye was the one that had red on it. You see that like he has these pretty stark blue eyes, and almost like where the pupil and the iris meet, there is like a thin line of red that still exists there, but for the most part it looks like the red has all cleared up.
Okay. Is there an entrance into this to the keep?
Yeah, so as you look around the city, you see there's like it's just so the house, a lot of it looks like there's like buildings with sort of like thatched roofs. The streets are paved with kind of like cobblestone and brick, and mortar. And as you're walking just kind of through it, you look around and there's nobody here. There's just no one. There's like signs on the shops and everything, but there's no people in there. And as you look up at the castle, you do see there is like these two large wooden doors in front, and there's a symbol on the front of it that looks like kind of like a shooting star or a comet.
Okay. Can I take one of the apples off the tree?
Yeah, so as you make your way through the city, you get yourself to the front door. As you open the doors, you see revealed in front of you is that tree with those red apples in front of it. And Mobius is just following behind you. You can see he's still kind of trying to like shake things off and figure things out also.
Okay, I'm going to pluck one from the tree and taking a small dagger from my belt, going to sort of carve the skin off one side of the apple and sort of cut a slice out of it. And I'm going to look at him as I slowly start to put it towards my mouth just to see if there's a reaction from him.
Yeah, that's a good question. So you pluck this apple off the tree, carve a slice. You see Mobius, like, as he looks at you, you don't see him doing anything, but you see that red in his eye begin to glow. Like, it still is that thin line, but it begins to glow a little bit more and become that deeper, darker red.
And just before I put the slice in my mouth, I'll sort of tuck it back behind my fingers and walk over to him. Mobius, sorry for my haste and my rudeness. And I'm going to carve him a slice, and I'm going to offer him a slice first.
Okay. He says, "Is this?" He says, "I don't know why, but almost feels like this apple is speaking to me. I can hear a voice in my head, but it's telling me to consume this and eat this." And he kind of like looks at you and just sort of has this look of like, he's just woken up, he doesn't know really what's going on, and he's looking for some sort of like confirmation in one way or the other of like almost what to do.
I'll call my raven familiar and just pluck a little bit off the slice and offer it to the raven first to see if it's going to accept it as food.
Yeah.
Or if it's sort of warned off it by some animal intuition.
Yeah, that's a good question. You got dice with you?
Do I have to roll physical dice?
Let's roll a physical. Do you have to? The question is, do you get to?
Oh well, 2 seconds. I'll grab my dice. I can hear them shouting for us now.
Excellent.
See, they were tucked behind me books and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were really. I can't believe you heard them. They were really hidden back there.
I'm gonna have to use my dice tray though. Obviously.
Yeah. Hey, I think we have the same dice tray.
Yeah, snap.
That is the same. Oh, wait. Mine's a different logo.
Oh.
They're basically the same.
But they're basically the same, yeah. I did drop some chili sauce on mine as well. So it's got a bit of extracurricular design on there.
I feel like things don't become my things until I spill food on them. That's how I claim ownership.
I have my dice ready.
All right, just give me a D20 roll, and if you feel like you would have like, I guess if you're familiar, if you feel like you would have some sort of like magical proficiency with that, you can add, like a +3 to it.
I would feel it would be more of a companion than a familiar. Whether that's actually the case or not, I don't feel like I would know.
So as a companion.
Ooh. 6.
6.
See, you were right. The curse.
I told you they were gonna, but at least you're rolling them bad when it's not like a real game,
What's real? This is real to me now, right now.
Yeah, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. Yeah. So with the 6, I think you can't really tell if the raven is, as you hold it up, it like hops over and gets ready to like eat it, and you can't really tell what its initial reaction is to it, but it'll listen to you like either way.
Take a bit.
You see the raven starts to like pluck at it and eat it, and you see as it eats it, you see, first of all, it starts in like the back of its feathers. You see the red slowly begins to start spreading and spreading and spreading. And it's at this point you hear a voice come from behind the tree. You see there are 2 doors in the wall, and you see the doors like burst open, and you see dressed in front of you is this very like royal, regal looking, almost, they're wearing this long sort of like classic like Victorian era like dress, but it has like the ruffles and the sort of like floofiness of it, and you see it's kind of like the Queen of Hearts in like Alice in Wonderland a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's got that, it's just all of it's red and white, and you see she yells out and she goes, Stop this immediately! Who said that you could partake from the tree?" And you see guards rush and begin like crowding around all the outside of the keep.
And the raven's turning red, you see, as well. I am going to flick the dagger around in my hand and stab the raven.
Ooh. That's awesome. So you flick the dagger up, stab the raven. You see the raven lets out like a last squawk, and you see as the like blood begins to spill out of it, you see the red begins to spread, and it's like a smaller raven, but it just keeps spreading and going, and you see the red from the blood begins to go and like enters into these people's, like the guards' nose and their mouth and their eyes, and just begins to like enter, and they all like fall on the ground and begin to writhe down below.
Shit.
And that's where we'll end.
Oh, I definitely need to see where this goes. Yeah.
The next person that plays D&D, that's where we'll pick up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, that was great. Yeah, excellent.
Thanks for playing with me. I love.
Yeah, no worries.
I like when people choose D&D, but it's hard because obviously I never plan for it or anything, because they could also choose to make up a game. But I always have fun. You're right. Like D&D is just always fun. It's always fun.
Yeah. I mean, for that like 15 minutes there, we were playing there. That was all there was.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah. It's just
You
totally into it. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Scott, thanks for coming on the show too. Thanks for being
No, I
here
really
with me.
appreciate you having us on. Like I say, it was totally on a whim, and actually, I would say it's thanks to you, Parker, that I sort of got rid of my old Twitter account and got my Roll or Nothing one, and that was the thing that really thought, well, hang on, if somebody wants to speak to me about my experiences with D&D, and I have done nothing in the world of tabletop games other than be a player and a DM. Like I haven't created anything, I can't draw, I'm not an artist or anything like that. And I thought, well, if there's one person that wants to have a chat with us around, me as a player and my experience as a DM and D&D in general, then the law of averages states there's got to be a couple more.
Yeah.
So that's kind of it was you that kind of inspired us to take on my other Twitter account and try and interact with exclusively sort of tabletop and D&D players and creators and stuff like that. So thanks very much for that. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. That does mean a lot to me, because and I know we talked about like not giving compliments after somebody compliments, but I wanted to say, like, it just, I mean, the things that we've talked about, right? Like, these are, I know we're not the only ones that like have these thoughts or have these opinions or have these problems, and just knowing, like, it doesn't matter if somebody is famous. It doesn't matter if somebody is a good artist, or if they can even if they're the best DM, or they can do accents well and they're great at, it doesn't matter, because like I feel like everybody has something that we can learn from.
Yeah,
and like
100%.
And I want to say, just like, I'm grateful, because I've realized like how hard it is not feeling heard, and especially like the early days of all of it, when you're just like, there is no one listening to anything I'm saying. Like, no one is listening. I remember you would just like the things I would say, and it meant a lot. I'd get 2 likes on a post, and you were one of them, and that really meant a lot to me. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I doubt this goes anywhere, and I doubt I get big or famous, but it's that, I think most ideas die pretty early on. So
yeah,
the fact that you just gave me that enforcement, or like positive reinforcement, was so helpful. So thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. No, I think as long as you're doing something for the right reasons, if it's something that you all want to do, and it brings you enjoyment and happiness from it, then it can only lead to a good place for you, whether that means 70 or 70,000 followers and subscribers. As long as you're getting the same level of satisfaction from it, then keep doing it.
Yeah I just want to live forever and be immortal. There's nothing wrong with that, right?
Absolutely not. No.
Nothing bad has ever come from that want or desire.
Just roll up a new character.